If you've already seen my video review of the HD808 number 11 keyring camera, you'll already be aware of a lot of the information that's about to follow, so I'll save you some time and skip to the chase. There's now a new model of 808 camera called the Jumbo 808. It comes in 3 different designs. It's slightly larger than the old camera, it takes the same excellent quality HD video, and it's got a longer battery life. And that's pretty much all you need to know. Right, so for those that are still with me, I'll do the video review in a second, but first there's something I want to mention. I do try and read all the comments that people put about the videos and the questions that they put up. I try and learn from them and do things differently next time. And here's a comment that I saw. It says, "God, that guy's boring. Couldn't be bothered to listen to his boring waffle. Next time, send the boring git a parcel bomb." So from that I'm getting the feeling that maybe I'm a bit boring. So on this video I thought I'll try and liven it up a bit. So, hopefully that's done the trick. Now on with the review. Now I really like the HD808 number 11 keyring camera, and the reason for this is because it records in H.264 video, which has good compression, and it records at 30 frames a second. Now since I did that video review, I tried reviewing some other small cameras, but they've all fallen short, and that's because they record in motion JPEG, and they don't record at 30 frames a second, even though they say they do. They drop frames all over the place. Now, to explain what drop frames are, you need to look at my RD32 camera review, but briefly it means that the camera unfortunately doesn't record 30 frames a second. It tends to record maybe 15-20 frames a second and duplicate the rest, which leads to jerky video. Now the manufacturers and retailers of the HD808 camera are a company called Elitop Online 365, and they only sell through eBay. They do have 8 different subsidiaries whose names you can see now, but again they're all just on eBay. Anyway, this company got in touch with me and said they got a new model out called the Jumbo 808, and they sent me the links to the relevant eBay auction, so I went ahead and bought one of these cameras. Now you can get the camera on its own for $48 at the moment. There's 3 different styles. There's these 2 and then the one that I got, which is this one. Now when I ordered it, I bought the whole package, the camera, all the accessories and everything. Although not all of these are worth the money, so you might be better off just getting the camera on its own. But I'll show you what you get if you buy everything. Well, first off, you get this 12-volt car adapter, which is a nice one. It's one of those flush ones that only came out about a year ago, and I think it was Belkin were charging about £8 for them, so that's quite a good thing on its own. It comes with a double-sided piece of sticky back Velcro, so you can mount it to things. It comes with 2 USB leads. This first one has got like a thin wire on it, and I'll explain the difference between the 2 later on. And then there's this thicker wire one here. Now this is one of the things that's an optional extra. It's a little adapter that holds 1 AA battery, and it allows you to power the camera for a little bit longer by attaching this dongle to it. But it's not very well made. I wouldn't recommend getting this, but I'll tell you what it does to battery life later on. Of course you get the usual instructions, which are getting better all the time and do make some kind of sense, but I'll talk you through how the camera works just in case you don't really want to read those. Now looking at the specification, you can see it's 720p 1280 by 720 H.264, 5 megapixel stills. Out of the box it records 20-minute segments. It just keeps recording until the camera's full and then stops. It doesn't loop. And you can put a 32GB card in there and use it as a webcam. Here's the camera itself. They're packaging these things better all the time. This one comes in one of these little anti-static packages, and here it is. All the functions are identical to the old camera. Even though it's got 3 buttons on the top, the middle one does nothing. On this side you've got the USB port, a reset hole and a slot for the MicroSD card. Comparing it with the old camera, you'll notice it's slightly larger, but not ridiculously so. It's still very small really when you think about it. The MicroSD card that used to stick out slightly on the older model is flush on this one, and that's about all there is to say about it at the moment. I'll show you the operation later on. Now I'll just briefly return to talking about those 2 different USB leads. The thinner of the 2 USB leads is used for charging the camera, and that lead is 2 meters long, and you can record and charge at the same time with that one. The thicker of the 2 USB leads is only used for transferring data, and that one's 1 meter long. Now charge time is 2 hours and record time is 90 minutes, which is about double the record time that you got out of the old camera. And that's pretty much worth the difference in price on its own. Now if you were to record for that length of time, it would take 5.16 gigs of storage. So if you stuck an 8 gig card in it, you'd be able to record until the battery went flat. Now if you use the extended battery thing that I got, it takes one AA battery and it extends the recording time by an hour. Now I've got a feeling that some of you at the back there are falling asleep because you're bored, so rather than keep on like this, let's go and show some test footage from the two different cameras. Now one thing I wanted to do was test out the difference in wind noise between the two, but unfortunately I've had to sell a motorcycle. I've got this convertible car instead because I'm having a midlife crisis, but it's all on HP so I don't think I'm rolling in it. Anyway, I've stuck the two cameras to the back here and let's go and test them outside. Now you should have noticed two things from that footage. The first thing is that the new camera picks up slightly less wind noise than the older camera, and the second thing is that both cameras pick up an annoying crackle stroke buzz. And that is electrical interference that the camera's picking up from my car engine, but they also pick this up when you put them near a phone or a computer because they're not very well electrically shielded. Right, so I think that's enough footage shot from the car, so now let's have a look at some things that I shot while I was out on my lunch in Manchester. The jumbo camera is recording a really nice, clear, sharp image here with nice bright colours. Let's do a split screen and compare it to the older HD 808 on the left here, and you'll see that that one's slightly softer and maybe a bit washed out. I'm not sure if that's down to having maybe a bit of muck on the lens or something, but the new one's definitely better. Now one of the things that I'm incessantly going on about here is the drop frames on these other cameras, so let's get some of the footage from the HD 808 and see if there really are 30 separate frames within a second. So I've got this scene here now, we'll wind it back just to 38 and then onto 39. Right, let's go forward and count the frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. There you are, 30 separate frames within 1 second. Not a single one dropped. Right, now onto the dull bit. If you already know how to operate one of these cameras, I'm afraid this won't be much interest to you. You switch it on by pressing the back button. The light flashes on the right here. Now in this mode you can record a video or move it into photo mode. We record a video, we press the front one, the light flashes, that means it's now recording video. Tap it again, the light comes on permanently, that means it's in standby mode. Press the bottom one, it's gone into photo mode. Tap the top one, it flashes once, that's a photo. Tap again, that's another photo. Tap the bottom one, we're back into video mode again. Tap the top one, bit of a flash, that means we were taking video. Tap it again, light comes on, we're in standby. Hold the bottom one down and wait for the light to go out and the camera's off. I'll just show you 3 stills that I took with the camera, and the only reason that I'm doing this is to show you that it does take photos. I wouldn't recommend using this as a stills camera. It doesn't take very good images, and any small compact camera or mobile phone would do a much better job. But if you didn't have one of those on you, then this would be better than nothing, of course. One interesting difference between the old and new cameras is that the older one has that microphone hole there next to the lens, whereas the new one doesn't. So I was interested to find out how this would affect the sound quality. So I thought I'd go out in Manchester and try and find a busker or a street musician to record, but instead I found this. Those drugs are a hell of a thing, aren't they? But for this guy, the party never stops. Unfortunately for me, the music's all inside his head and no one else can hear it. So I need to find another street performer. Now where am I going to get one of those? Hold on, I know. Well, there's one thing that I know now, and that's the old camera has slightly better sound quality than the new one. So that made me want to crack open the new camera and see where the microphone was placed. So I got out the old spatulas and snapped it apart. Luckily, not breaking anything. So let's have a look inside. Well, there's the bigger battery that powers the camera for that extra length of time. And there at the top right near my thumb is the microphone. As you can see, it's just pointing straight up and there's no hole on the outside of the camera to match up with that. I suppose you could always drill a tiny hole through it. Now here's the old camera in comparison next to it, and as you can see, the size of the circuit board is actually bigger than the old camera itself. So they have made some sort of improvements or alterations to the setup. Anyway, let's snap it back together again. There you go, good as new. I can wrap that one up for Christmas. Right, just one thing I thought I should mention. On the old camera the LED was on the left, but on this one it's on the right, and that means that when you press the start-stop button, your thumb obscures the light. I thought that was a bit of a bad design decision, and I just wanted to mention it. So to sum up, the Jumbo HD 808 camera is my current favourite micro HD camera. For me it's better than the old number 11 camera purely because of its longer battery life. Now it'd be even more useful if they were to put this in a camera-shaped device rather than a keyring, something like this for example. I wrote to the manufacturers and gave them a wish list. I asked them would they come up with a waterproof bullet-shaped camera that could do optional cycle recording and have a wide-angle lens. They did reply back to me and said that they were working on new models, so fingers crossed. Now one thing that I've deliberately kept separate from this video is information about adjusting the time and flashing the firmware. The old HD 808 and the new Jumbo camera use the same firmware and the same method for setting the time and date. Now the old firmware that comes on the camera records in 20-minute segments and has the time and date stamp on it. You can put new firmware on that records in 50-minute segments, and there's one of those available with a timestamp and without. So if you don't like having this timestamp at the bottom right of all your footage, it's not such a difficult job to flash the firmware and remove that completely. Now I've put instructions on how to do that on my website this time. Now the website is techmoan.com. It's on the screen now, and there's a separate video on there that explains how to flash the firmware and how to set the time. So if you're interested in doing that, go to my website and watch that rather long and boring video that just explains those two things. But for the moment, that's the end of this video, so congratulations on getting through all 13 minutes, and thanks for watching.